Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, England is considering relocating its embassy to Jerusalem. Newly elected British Prime Minister Liz Truss said that she is examining the possibility of moving her country's diplomatic mission to the Israeli capital. Truss made a campaign promise to her Jewish and Christian constituency to consider the move if elected. Last week, she told interim Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid that she is positively weighing the possibility of establishing England's embassy in the Israeli capital. In her holiday greeting to the Jewish community, Truss vowed to stamp out anti-Semitism and said that she will always be a staunch friend of Israel.
Russia and Iran have taken aim at Israeli pilgrims visiting the Ukrainian city of Uman over the Rosh Hashanah holiday. According to reports, Ukraine's army shot down at least 10 Iranian-made attack drones headed for Uman, where more than 20,000 Jews and Israelis were observing the religious festival. Reports indicate that Jerusalem and Kiev shared intelligence information regarding Tehran's transfer of the advanced weapons to Moscow. A Ukrainian security official went on record saying that one of the conditions for Iran's handover of the Shahed 136 UAVs to Russia was that the kamikaze drones be used to attack Israelis in Ukraine.
The Alberta province of Canada has adopted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. Canada has been plagued by Jewish bigotry, and the government has come under fire for not doing enough to protect its Jewish population. A recent report by Canada's National Statistical Agency reflects that Jewish Canadians were the most targeted religious minority. Last year, nearly half of reported hate crimes in the country targeted Jews. Shimon Fogel, the president and CEO of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, praised the adoption of IHRA, saying that identifying anti-Semitism is the first step in recognizing its manifestations, which is key to standing against it. Since 2016, the IHRA definition has been widely adopted by countries across the globe as part of an international effort to combat bigotry and hatred against Jews and the Jewish state. This description cites 11 examples of hatred, 7 of which refer to the demonization of both Jews and Israel. Alberta joins the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, and New Brunswick in adopting this definition, and the Jewish community hopes that it will assist law enforcement and government officials to properly identify anti-Jewish hate crimes and help to educate the public about anti-Semitism.
El Al, Israel's national airline, has announced the early repayment of a state loan it received during the COVID-19 lockdown. The company said the $45 million loan from the State of Israel will be paid off 2 years ahead of its due date. Renewed air travel has enabled the flagship carrier to recover financially, and the repayment of its debt to the government will allow El Al to expand its fleet of airplanes as well as hire new workers to meet the increasing demand of travelers.
The cyber unit of the Israeli Defense Forces announced that it foiled dozens of attempted Iranian hacks against civilian sites. An official with the IDF said there has been a 70% increase in attempted cyber attacks originating from Tehran. An official with the IDF's C-41 Corps said that Tehran has invested enormous resources into its cyber capabilities. He said that there are 10 Iranian cyber units devoted to hacking Israeli infrastructure. Jerusalem has taken this threat seriously and has expanded its cyber defense capabilities. Israel and the United States Cyber Command have been reportedly holding routine cyber drills to bolster both countries' defenses.
Israeli authorities thwarted an attempted terror attack on a busy train track over the Rosh Hashanah holiday. Police are still searching for suspects in what could have been a catastrophic disaster on Israel's railways. The terrorist reportedly took advantage of the transportation shutdown over the Jewish holiday to plan an improvised device which was supposed to detonate when train travel resumed. The attempt to derail the train, which runs between the cities of Akko and Carmiel, was discovered by Israel Railway's security unit before service started on Tuesday night.
A group of Israeli and American researchers have developed a retinal scan to diagnose Alzheimer's disease with the use of the biblical spice turmeric. 4 facilities in Israel worked with Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California, to develop the eye scan using the yellow Middle Eastern spice. Turmeric binds to beta amyloid plaques in patients with the degenerative brain disease and is visible in retinal scans. The Israel Medical Association's Hebrew language journal has published the group's findings, saying that it appears that changes in the retina reflect disease processes in the brain, including the development of Alzheimer's disease.
An ancient shipwreck discovered off the coast of Israel has shed light on trade with the Holy Land during the 7th and 8th centuries of the Common Era. Archaeologists believe that the vessel was over 80 feet long and was full of cargo from Cyprus, Egypt, and North Africa. The ship sank in shallow water over 1,000 years ago in a location which is ideal for scientists because its sandy bottom has preserved artifacts, proving that there was trade throughout the Mediterranean. Deborah Zwikel, a nautical archaeologist from the University of Haifa, directed the excavation of the ship. She was backed by the Israel Science Foundation, the Honor Frost Foundation, and the Institute of Nautical Archaeology at Texas A&M University.
Corrupt Iraqi politicians have stashed billions of dollars in Lebanese banks in order to avoid U.S. sanctions. According to a recent report in the Media Line, officials with ties to Hezbollah, Iran, and Sunni terrorists have drained the Iraqi government's coffers and deposited billions of dollars into Lebanese accounts. Former U.S. President Donald Trump imposed sanctions against certain Iraqi politicians in 2017. Since then, Beirut has become a center for financial corruption. Hezbollah largely controls the banks in Lebanon and was willing to deposit the funds, circumventing U.S. sanctions while kicking back a hefty portion of the dirty money to Iran.
Millions of people who are descended from Spanish and Portuguese Jews are now eligible to apply for a certificate of Sephardi ancestry. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were forcibly converted or expelled from Spain in the years between 1478 and 1834. Now, Jeannie Milgram, a leading genealogical researcher, is working to digitize Inquisition records to help people trace and learn about their crypto-Jewish heritage. Known as conversos, Marranos, and Anusim, Jews who were forcibly converted to Catholicism during the Inquisition kept their Judaism a secret in order to survive. However, in many cases, they lost their Judaism. Milgram created a database that provides tools to help people trace their Spanish Jewish lineage so that the descendants of the Marranos can reconnect with their heritage.
Jews and Christians have been working together to breed the biblical red heifer needed for the Third Temple. The book of Numbers, chapter 19, verse 3, details the necessity of a perfect scarlet cow, which must be without blemish or imperfection. After years of working together to breed the perfect auburn calves in Texas, 5 red heifers recently arrived in Israel. After the required quarantine, the livestock will be moved to 2 locations in the Jewish state. One of them will be open to visitors. The identification of a red heifer is very significant to Jews and Christians who yearn to see the Third Temple built and service in the holy place restored.
An ancient coin stolen from an archaeological excavation in Israel has finally been returned. The 2,000-year-old quarter shekel was minted in the 4th year of the Great Jewish Revolt against the Roman Empire, just 1 year before the destruction of the Second Jewish Temple. It was looted from the Ela Valley in the year 2002. The thieves smuggled the stolen coin out of Israel to the United States, where they falsified paperwork on the artifact and attempted to sell it. The Israel Antiquities Authority worked with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office of Antiquities Trafficking Unit to gather evidence of the coin's provenance and to issue a seizure warrant. The coin was recently turned over to Israeli authorities in a ceremony in New York. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, attended the ceremony and said the coin is evidence of the eternal bond between the Jewish people and the land of Israel.
The Jewish state has reported record-breaking aliyah in 2022. More than 60,000 new olim, or immigrants, came from 93 countries, choosing to make Israel their home this year. This is a 128% increase over 2021. Nearly 40,000 Jews from Russia and the Ukraine moved to Israel this year with the support and funding from Keren HaYesod. Israel's total population has exceeded 9.5 million people, 7 million of which are Jewish. Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics reported that the country's population grew by 187,000 souls since Rosh Hashanah of last year. The CBS noted that when Israel became a state in 1948, the population was 806,000. Israel is expected to reach 10 million citizens by 2024.
The Jewish people will begin the observance of the Day of Atonement this week from sundown on the evening of October 4th until sunset on October 5th. Yom Kippur is the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, when the entire nation of Israel collectively afflicts their souls by refraining from food and water and praying for deliverance. The days after Rosh Hashanah leading up to Yom Kippur are known as the Days of Awe, where the Jewish people recite special slichot prayers and request forgiveness for any wrongdoing from others, so that by the Day of Atonement, they themselves will be humble when they ask for forgiveness from God.
The Israel Allies Foundation is one of the most important pro-Israel organizations in the United States and around the world. Thanks to the Israel Allies Foundation, its parliamentary caucuses, and our Christian friends and partners around the world, the bond between our faiths has never been stronger.
I just want to begin by saying thank you to the Israel Allies Foundation for bringing us together from near and far to say with one voice, America stands with Israel.
The Israel Allies Foundation is ensuring a better future for Israel, America, and the rest of the world.
Thank you all for being Israel's allies.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Professor Eugene Kontorovitch. He works at the Kohelet Policy Forum. Eugene, thank you for being on the show.
Great to be here, Josh.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Kohelet Policy Forum.
The Kohelet Policy Forum is Israel's largest think tank. It deals with all the important issues affecting Jewish life in Israel, the overwhelming power the courts have. We're trying to reform that, and protecting Israel's identity as a Jewish nation state. Indeed, we're very involved in the passing of the constitutional amendment defining Israel as a Jewish nation state, fighting BDS, and ensuring a healthy economic system.
You're one of the top international lawyers in Israel, and many people talk about your work against the BDS and legislating it in the United States, in Europe, in different places around the world. What's the next big threat to Israel when it comes to the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement?
So the next big threat is the new blood libel, the attempt to define Israel, falsely of course, as an apartheid state. Critics of Israel have tried throwing all sorts of mud at it. They called it an occupying power. That didn't stick. So now they need to turn up the rhetoric and accuse it of being the worst thing possible. Of course, in Israel, there's absolutely no separation between Jews and Arabs or anybody else in any public space, in any official capacity. Arabs indeed now are in the government coalition. And it's really an attempt to put Jews beyond the pale of civilization. I don't think it's going to succeed. It's something that the UN has actually been trying for decades, but that's clearly the next rhetorical move.
One of the big threats that people don't really talk about, but you can see it on the ground, is what's happening in Area C, the Jewish areas of Judea and Samaria. There's just been this movement to build up illegally a lot of homes for the Palestinian population, the Arab population there. Why is no one talking about this?
So it's being done a bit undercover, but in a sense, but also openly, and it's called the Fayad Plan. And what this is an effort by the Palestinian Authority, funded by European governments and some private European groups, mostly by European governments, to surround the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, to surround them with Arab planting, Arab building, and basically cut them off from the rest of Israel and make Jewish life there impossible and prevent either a two-state solution or any solution under Israeli rule, any kind of solution. It's to choke them and surround them. And they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the European Union. They're trying to create a de facto Palestinian state.
So why is the Israeli government letting this happen right under their noses?
So it's a good question. The Israeli government, as we know, is divided. It's a messed up, fractious coalition with lots of different parties, and there's not clear leadership to stop this. But that's one of the reasons. Another reason, of course, is that when Israel does try to stop this, when Israel does knock down the illegal farms, roads, empty apartment buildings that are made by the Palestinian Authority just to surround and block the growth of Jewish communities, America, European countries condemn it. Say, oh, you're demolishing Palestinian homes, when these are just structures made by the EU in the past couple years specifically to prevent Jewish life in this area. It's actually illegal settlement building of the most real kind.
Oh, why is the Biden administration seem to be in favor of this? This has nothing. This doesn't help with American interests on the ground. Why is this something that actually the Biden administration is promoting by trying to stop or tie the hands of the Israeli government from acting against it?
The Biden administration, like the Europeans, know in their hearts and in their minds that the Palestinians are never actually going to agree to any deal. This whole notion of a negotiated settlement, everyone knows now it's fake. The Palestinians don't want a negotiated settlement. But those who believe that denying Jewish existence, preventing Jews from living in these areas is essential, that is to say, creating a Judenrein Palestinian state, a Jew-free Palestinian state, they understand the only way is not through negotiations, but to give, through illegal action and hostile takeover, the Palestinians the state that they want them to have.
Well, there's a lot of people living in these areas, a lot of Israelis. Are they doing anything to stop this since the government isn't doing anything to help them?
Yeah, and I know some of these people, and I've actually had opportunity recently to see some of their work in the field. What people in these communities now are doing, and I think it's a vital effort, I'd say after the Iran threat, stopping the surrounding and the encirclement and the cutting off of these communities is Israel's most important strategic challenge. What they're going is they're going and they're planting trees, they're building roads to block this takeover. And an important thing to know is pretty much every Jewish community in Judea and Samaria is surrounded by a fence. Right? We hear that the Palestinians are under apartheid. When you look who's gated in, who's caged in, it's the Jews. Because of course Arabs can live right next to a Jewish community. They don't need to put up a fence because they're not under threat. The Jews feel that they are under threat. They're under constant terrorist attack. And because of the huge number of attacks just this year, we've seen there have been 73 shooting attacks in Judea and Samaria just recently. So the Jews put up fences. Those fences allow the Palestinian Authority to take over everything outside of the fences. So now there's a movement on which supporters of Israel can and should support to take down the fences and expand these communities in ways that would block the Fayad Plan and back this EU-funded takeover.
Now you brought up Iran, which is the big existential threat. A nuclear Iran could wipe Israel off the map, which is their official foreign policy. We're heading into the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. Is this something that's going to be on a lot of Jewish people's minds going into the next year?
That's right. On Yom Kippur, the Day of Judgment, Jews pray for a year of survival, a year of life. And it's a day of judgment when countries and the Jewish state, of course, are judged who will live, who will die, who by the sword. And when we pray who by fire, of course, we're thinking of the Iranian nuclear weapons. And certainly Israel needs all of the help from its supporters around the world to fight its greatest challenge, the effort by America, supported by the Europeans, to enable genocidal Iranian nuclear regime.
Why would the American administration and the European communities be for a nuclear Iran? It seems so counterproductive.
That's a big mystery ever since the Obama administration adopted this theory. And one of the major understandings of it is that it represents an American and European withdrawal from world leadership. America saying, you know what, we don't want to be running the show around the world. We don't want to be ensuring global security. Every place is going to have to run itself, which means, in fact, the regional power is going to have to run itself. In the Middle East, you have a couple regional powers, Israel and Iran, and for reasons that only their consciences can explain, they're picking Iran.
Eugene, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
So one of the greatest challenges Israel's facing that you're not going to read about in the papers, that's kind of under the radar, is this attempt to take over Area C, to take over Judea and Samaria, really, and stop the growth of Jewish communities. Hundreds and thousands of structures are being constructed every month, and the groups that are trying to support this, to break out of the fences that have surrounded Jewish communities and block their growth, they need their support. Much to my sorrow, some European progressive Christian groups are significantly funding the illegal Palestinian takeover, and Christians who truly believe in the Bible need to do everything they can to help the Jewish communities.
Thank you, Eugene, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, wishing you a meaningful Day of Atonement. And now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Aryeh Oz is one of Israel's most famed pilots and was responsible for helping to bring home our brothers and sisters from Ethiopia. Let his story inspire you to help bring home the next generation of Ethiopian Olim.
I was born in Germany. My family fled Germany after the Kristallnacht to Holland with an intention to immigrate to Palestine. However, the Germans conquered Holland and we were stuck in Holland. It was 1942 when we were summoned to the German headquarters and told that we have to evacuate our home to an extermination camp in Poland. A student came over and said, "We have a hiding place for you." The next day I found myself in a Dutch farming family. They kept me for 3 years. I immigrated into Israel in 1946. I was almost 11 years old. I was completely alone in this world. Wherever I came, somebody or some institute came to my rescue. The biggest of all was a youth village where I came to. The educational management took me by the hand and guided me and gave me a start which made my way up to flying school a piece of cake. I was selected by the Air Force to become a cadet in the most, famous Israeli Air Force. I was grateful that I could repay in a small way and contribute to the same effort. This mutual responsibility, from which I gained so much, followed through my whole career in the Air Force. I was the third captain who flew a C-130, a Hercules, to Entebbe and rescued so many people. When we were told that we have to fly 4 airplanes to Entebbe at weights beyond any imagination, we didn't ask any question. We said, it is needed, it will be done. In the early 90s, we were about to evacuate 14,500 Ethiopian Jews from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv. We had 760 seats in our aircraft. However, when they arrived and all the seats were occupied, commanding officer of the operation came over and said, "We need you to take more people on." And my answer was, you don't have to ask even. It's obvious. Bring them on. I set the world record. I brought on one flight 1,087 people from Addis Ababa to Ben Gurion Airport. When we descended and came over Jerusalem, I made a left turn towards Ben Gurion, and the whole oil aircraft was singing Yerushalayim of gold. There was not one person in the cockpit who had no tears in his eyes. Every time. That when I made my walk around, I always looked up and saw the Star of David and said to myself, gee, this is Israel. This is the Jewish people.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Karen Hayesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
We are living in mysterious yet miraculous times. We've witnessed the most remarkable fulfillment of biblical prophecy, the Jewish people's return to Israel, and the prosperity and contributions of this tiny country in such a short time. Yet we've also seen an unexpected rise in anti-Semitism, which takes the form of anti-Zionism and alliances between groups that are fighting against the most fundamental biblical values. In the book Titus, Trump, and the Triumph of Israel, Josh Reinstein answers important questions to clarify what has driven political action from the time that the Roman Emperor Titus destroyed Jerusalem until today, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Get your copy today and learn how faith-based diplomacy has changed the world. To order your advance copy, go to triumphofisrael.com.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El-Rom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.